The morning sun filtered through the tall windows of Murphy's diner, casting golden streaks across the black and white checkered floor. Luna Martinez adjusted her coral pink uniform dress, with its crisp white collar and cuffs smoothing down the fabric as she prepared for another day of serving coffee and comfort to the regulars, who had become like family to her. At 32, Luna had worked at Murphy's for nearly 8 years, ever since she'd moved to the small Connecticut town. After her divorce, her auburn hair was pulled back in a neat bun, and her warm brown eyes held the kind of gentle wisdom that comes from listening to countless stories over endless cups of coffee. She had a gift for making people feel seen, really seen, in a world that often seemed to rush past without noticing. This particular Tuesday morning started like any other, until she noticed them. A man in an expensive charcoal gray suit sat in booth 7, his dark hair perfectly styled, his posture radiating the kind of tension that money couldn't ease. Across from him sat a boy of about 7, blonde hair catching the morning light, wearing a red plaid shirt that looked soft and well-loved. But it was the silence between them that caught Luna's attention, not the comfortable quiet of a peaceful breakfast, but something deeper, more profound. The boy, Mateo, sat perfectly still, his blue eyes focused on the salt shaker he was gently sliding back and forth across the table's surface. The man, Elijah Thornton, stared out the window with the weight of the world in his shoulders. Luna had seen many fathers and sons in her years at the diner. She'd watched tired fathers gulp coffee while their children chattered about school, seen weekend dads trying hard to connect over pancakes. But this was different. This was a father drowning in love for a child he couldn't reach. She approached their table with the same warm smile she offered everyone. But something in her heart shifted when she saw Mateo more clearly. The boy's movements were deliberate, almost ritualistic. He didn't look up when she approached, didn't seem to notice her presence at all. His father's eyes, when they met hers, held a mixture of exhaustion and desperate hope that she'd seen before, but not quite like this. "Good morning," Luna said softly, her voice carrying the kind of gentleness that seemed to put people at ease. "I'm Luna. What can I get started for you folks today?" Elijah cleared his throat, his voice careful and measured. "Coffee, black, and for him." He paused, watching his son's repetitive movements with the salt shaker. "Chocolate chip pancakes. He likes things that are sweet." Luna nodded, but she didn't move away immediately. Something about Mateo drew her attention. She watched as he continued his careful ritual with the salt shaker. And then something remarkable happened. She began to hum, very quietly, a simple melody her grandmother used to sing to her when she was small. For the first time since they'd arrived, Mateo's movements paused. His head tilted slightly, as if he was listening to something far away. Luna's heart skipped, and she found herself humming a little louder, the melody floating through the morning air like a gentle invitation. Elijah noticed immediately. His son had stopped moving, was actually listening to something outside his own world. "He doesn't usually respond to voices," Elijah said quietly, wonder creeping into his tone. "The doctors say he's nonverbal autistic. He's never spoken, not once." Luna's eyes softened with understanding. She'd worked with special needs children before her marriage, back when she thought her life would take a completely different path. She knelt down beside the booth, bringing herself to Mateo's eye level, and continued humming the gentle tune. "Music has a way of reaching places that words sometimes can't," she said to Elijah. Though her attention remained focused on Mateo, every person has their own special language. Sometimes we just need to learn how to listen. She reached into her apron pocket and pulled out a small item that caught the morning light. It was a smooth, round stone, polished to a beautiful shine, with swirls of blue and green running through it. She'd carried it for years, a gift from her late grandmother who had taught her that sometimes the smallest gestures could change everything. "This belonged to my grandmother," Luna said, placing the stone gently on the table near Mateo's hand. "She always said it held magic, but I think the real magic was in sharing it with people who needed something beautiful to hold onto." Mateo's fingers slowly reached toward the stone. When he touched it, something extraordinary happened. He looked up, making eye contact with Luna for just a moment, and his lips parted as if he was trying to form a word. "Take your time, sweetheart," Luna whispered. "There's no rush for anything in this world." What happened next would change all their lives forever. Mateo picked up the stone, held it close to his ear as if listening to secrets only he could hear. And then, in a voice as clear as morning bells, he spoke his first word, "Pretty." The silence that followed was profound. Elijah's coffee cup froze halfway to his lips, his eyes wide with disbelief. Luna felt tears spring to her eyes, but she kept her voice steady and calm. "Yes, it is pretty," she agreed, her voice filled with wonder. "Just like you, Mateo." The boy smiled then, a radiant expression that transformed his entire face. "Pretty," he said again. And then, looking directly at Luna, "Nice lady." Elijah set down his coffee cup with shaking hands. In 7 years of specialists, therapists, and expensive treatments, no one had been able to reach his son the way this waitress in a small-town diner had managed to do in mere minutes. "How?" he whispered, his voice breaking with emotion. "How did you do that?" Luna stood slowly, smoothing down her coral dress, and for a moment she looked far older than her 32 years, as if she carried wisdom passed down through generations. "Sometimes the most powerful medicine isn't found in hospitals or fancy clinics," she said gently. "Sometimes it's found in taking the time to truly see someone, to meet them where they are instead of where we think they should be." She excused herself to get their order, but as she walked away, she could hear Mateo continuing to speak, his voice growing stronger with each word. "Daddy," he said, and Luna heard the sharp intake of breath from Elijah. "Daddy, the lady is nice." When Luna returned with their breakfast, she found father and son engaged in their first real conversation. Mateo was telling his father about the colors he could see in the stone, describing them with a vocabulary that amazed both adults. It was as if a dam had burst, and 7 years of stored words were finally flowing free. "I don't understand," Elijah said to Luna as she set down their plates. "We've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on specialists. How did you know what to do?" Luna sat down on the edge of the booth, uninvited, but somehow knowing it was okay. "Before I worked here, I was a special education teacher," she said quietly. "I worked with children like Mateo for 5 years before life took me in a different direction. But you never really stopped being a teacher, just like you never stopped being a father." She paused, watching Mateo carefully arrange his pancakes into perfect circles on his plate. "The thing about children like Mateo is that they're not broken or incomplete. They're just experiencing the world in a completely different way than most of us do. Sometimes they need someone who can speak their language, even if that language isn't made of words." Elijah leaned forward, his successful businessman facade cracking to reveal the vulnerable father underneath. "I've felt so helpless," he admitted. "After his mother died 3 years ago, it's just been me and him. And I've been failing him every single day." "Oh, honey," Luna said, her voice filled with the kind of maternal warmth that had been missing from both their lives. "Look at him. Really look at him. Does that seem like a child who's being failed?" Elijah turned to watch his son, who was now carefully eating his pancakes while humming the melody Luna had sung earlier. Mateo looked up and smiled at his father, a genuine, connected smile that Elijah had never seen before. "Daddy good," Mateo said clearly. "Daddy loves Mateo." The words hit Elijah like a physical force. His son had not only spoken, but had expressed an understanding of love that Elijah had worried might never exist. Between them, tears he'd been holding back for 3 years finally spilled over. Luna reached across the table and gently placed her hand over Elijah's. "He's always known you love him," she said softly. "Sometimes love doesn't need words to be understood, but isn't it wonderful when it finally finds them?" As the morning progressed, other customers came and went, but Luna found herself returning to booth 7 again and again. Each time, Matteo had new words to share, new observations about the world around him that revealed the depth of understanding he'd always possessed, but had never been able to express. When it came time for them to leave, Elijah stood up and pulled out his wallet. Luna expected him to leave a generous tip, as wealthy customers often did. Instead, he pulled out a business card and wrote something on the back. "I own a chain of learning centers for special needs children," he said quietly. "We have locations in 12 states, and we're always looking for people who truly understand how to reach these kids. I know you have a job here, but I want you to think about something." He handed her the card. On the back, he'd written a phone number and an amount that made Luna's eyes widen. It was more money than she made in 2 years at the diner. "This isn't about gratitude," Elijah continued. "Well, it is, but it's about more than that. You have a gift. Luna, you reach my son in a way that trained professionals couldn't. Imagine how many other children you could help." Luna looked down at the card, then at Matteo, who was carefully putting the smooth stone into his pocket like a treasured possession. "I'll think about it," she said honestly. "But can I ask you something?" Elijah nodded. "Will you bring him back here not because of any job offer, but because I think Matteo might like knowing he has a friend in this place? Sometimes the most important connections we make are the ones that don't have anything to do with business or career moves." Elijah's smile was the first genuine one Luna had seen from him all morning. "We'll be here next Tuesday," he promised. "Same time, same booth." As they prepared to leave, Matteo surprised everyone by walking directly to Luna and wrapping his small arms around her waist in a spontaneous hug. "Thank you, nice lady Luna," he said clearly. "Thank you for helping." Matteo find words. Luna knelt down to his level one more time, her eyes bright with unshed tears. The words were always there. "Sweetheart," she told him, "I just helped you remember where you put them." After they left, Luna stood in the empty diner, still holding Elijah's business card. Her manager, Mrs. Henderson, emerged from the kitchen where she'd been watching the entire interaction. "Honey," the older woman said, her voice filled with emotion, "in 40 years of running this place, I've never seen anything like what just happened. That man's going to change your life if you let him." Luna looked around the diner that had been her safe haven for 8 years, at the customers who had become her extended family, at the life she'd built from the pieces of her broken dreams. "Maybe," she said thoughtfully, "but I think maybe I changed his first." That evening, Luna sat in her small apartment above the flower shop next door, turning the smooth stone over in her hands. Matteo had given it back to her before leaving, insisting she keep it so she could help other children find their words too. She thought about the teacher she used to be before marriage and divorce, and the desperate need for steady income had led her to Murphy's Diner. She thought about the children she'd worked with, each one unique and wonderful in their own way. She thought about Matteo's first word, pretty, and how sometimes the most profound moments come disguised as ordinary Tuesday mornings. The next week, Luna was waiting when Elijah and Matteo arrived at their usual booth. But this time, she had something to show them. She'd spent the week researching Elijah's learning centers, talking to parents and teachers who worked with special needs children, and most importantly, thinking about what kind of life she wanted to build. "I have a proposition for you," she told Elijah as she served his black coffee and Matteo's chocolate chip pancakes. What if I didn't leave Murphy's, but brought what I do here to your learning centers? What if we created a program that taught people how to connect with special needs children in everyday settings, not just clinical environments? Elijah leaned back, intrigued. What do you mean? I mean teaching waitresses and shop clerks and librarians and all the regular people. These children encounter every day how to see them, really see them. How to create moments of connection that don't require degrees or certifications, just human understanding. Mateo looked up from his pancakes, syrup on his chin, and joy in his eyes. Luna teaches people to be nice, he said clearly, like Luna taught Daddy to hear Mateo's words. Both adults stared at him, amazed once again by his insight. Elijah reached across the table and wiped the syrup from his son's face with a gentleness that spoke of newfound confidence in their relationship. I think, Elijah said slowly, that might be the most important program we've never thought to create. And so began a partnership that would change not just their lives, but the lives of countless families across the country. Luna kept her job at Murphy's Diner, but 3 days a week, she traveled to Elijah's learning centers, teaching staff and community members how to create inclusive spaces where children like Mateo could thrive. The program, which they called Every Day Angels, became a model that spread to other states, other countries, other lives that needed touching. But for Luna, the most important part remained those Tuesday mornings in Booth 7, where she got to watch a father and son continue to discover new words, new connections, new ways of loving each other. Years later, when Mateo graduated from high school with honors and went on to study music therapy in college, he would tell people that his life changed the day a kind waitress in a coral pink dress taught him that words weren't just sounds, but bridges between hearts. And Luna would always say that the real magic wasn't in helping Mateo find his voice, but in learning that sometimes the most extraordinary purpose can be found in the most ordinary moments. If we just take the time to truly see the people in front of us. The smooth stone still sits on the counter at Murphy's Diner, available for any child who needs something beautiful to hold onto while they find their own words, their own way of connecting to the world around them. And every Tuesday morning, if you happen to be there at just the right time, you might still see a father and son sharing chocolate chip pancakes, their conversation full of words that once seemed impossible, their connection a testament to the power of human kindness, and the waitress who believed that everyone deserves to be truly seen. Because sometimes, the greatest treasures aren't found in bank accounts or business deals, but in the simple act of one person reaching out to another and saying, without words but with every action, you matter, your voice matters, and I'm here to help you find it.